Some families have heirlooms. Polished silver, a grandmother's wedding ring, a grandfather's watch that stopped ticking decades ago, but is still wound out of habit. My family had traditions, but our traditions weren't things you could hold. They were roles, unspoken contracts, signed in the blood of birth order and expectation. My name is Alara, and for 34 years, my role was the foundation, the load-bearing wall, the one you don't notice until a crack appears, and then you only notice the crack. It always began the same way: Thanksgiving, the fourth Thursday in November, a day that's supposed to be about gratitude, but in our house, it was always a day of accounting. A ledger of slights and achievements, where the columns were never, ever balanced. I'd arrive early, always. The cold brass of the doorknob on our family home in suburban Ohio felt less like a welcome and more like punching a time clock. The air inside would be thick with the holy trinity of Midwestern holiday smells: roasting turkey, boiling potatoes, and the sharp, chemical pine of floor cleaner. My mother would be in the kitchen, a whirlwind in an apron, her face a mask of stressed hospitality. She wouldn't turn around. "Oh, it's you," she'd say, her voice tight. "The sweet potatoes need peeling. The table isn't set." I can't do everything myself, Alara. There was never a hug, never a "I'm so glad you're here." Just an immediate deployment. I was a resource to be allocated. I'd hang up my coat, wash my hands, and silently begin my duties, my presence acknowledged only by the tasks assigned to it. I'd peel the potatoes, arrange the fine china we only used once a year, polish the silverware that my mother insisted was a sign of good breeding. I moved through the house like a ghost with a to-do list. My silence, a comfortable, necessary buffer against the tension that always simmered just beneath the surface. Then, around 2 o'clock, the herald's trumpet would sound. The doorbell, my mother would whip off her apron, smooth her hair, and her entire posture would transform. The low-pressure system of anxiety that was my mother would vanish, replaced by a radiant sun. Because he was here, my brother Liam, he'd breeze in, a conquering hero returning from a victorious campaign. He was 2 years older, a salesman of some tech product I never fully understood, and he radiated an effortless, unearned confidence that the world seemed determined to reward. "There's my boy." My mother would cry, wrapping him in the kind of embrace I hadn't felt since I was small enough to believe it was unconditional. My father would emerge from his den, his face lit with a rare, genuine smile. "Liam, good to see you, son." Liam would bring a new girlfriend every year, each one a shinier, more polished accessory than the last. This year, it was a woman named Tinsley, with teeth so white they seemed to hum and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. My mother would fawn over her, asking about her job in marketing, her family's summer home, her opinion on the Chardonnay Liam had brought a bottle that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. I would stand by the counter, holding a dish, and receive a casual, "Hey, Ilara," from my brother. A passing nod before he launched into the performance of being the center of the universe. I was part of the scenery, the wallpaper, necessary for the room to feel complete, but utterly unremarkable. And for years I accepted it. It was the order of things. He was the sun. I was the planet that kept the household in a stable, predictable orbit. This Thanksgiving, however, the orbit began to decay. We sat at the dining room table, the candlelight flickering across the perfectly set places. The conversation, as always, was a monologue dedicated to the gospel of Liam. His recent promotion, his brilliant strategy that had landed a whale of a client, the half-marathon he'd run for charity, the trip to Tuscany he was planning. With Tinsley, I ate my turkey, which was, as usual, a little dry. I listened to the oohs and ahs from my parents, the tinkling laughter from Tinsley. I felt the familiar weight of my own invisibility. My life, my job as a project manager at a small but respected non-profit. My volunteer work at the animal shelter. My quiet, stable existence was never brought up. It was beige. It was functional. It didn't sparkle. My father, raising his wine glass, beamed at Liam, to our son, making us proud every single day. Then, my mother turned her gaze to me. It wasn't warm. It was evaluative, a quick, dismissive scan. "Well," she said, her voice laced with that specific brand of passive aggression she'd perfected over a lifetime. "It's certainly a good thing someone in this family is so successful. Helps keep a roof over our heads." A silence fell. She was referring, of course, to the mortgage. To the fact that for the past 5 years, since my father's early retirement, which was really a layoff, I had been quietly, automatically, paying half of their mortgage and all of their utilities. It was never discussed. It was just an arrangement that had fallen into place after a tearful, panicked phone call from her one night. An arrangement I'd accepted because it was my function. I was the foundation. A bitter, reckless bubble rose in my throat. For the first time in my life, I didn't swallow it. I gave a small, tight smile. "Well, I'm just happy my direct deposits are working," I said, trying to keep my voice light, a joke between us. Wouldn't want the bank to get antsy. It was the wrong thing to say. It was acknowledging the machinery behind the curtain. My mother's face, which had been a portrait of maternal pride, hardened into something ugly and cold. The smile vanished. Her eyes narrowed to slits. She placed her fork down with a sharp click that echoed in the sudden quiet. "You know, Elara," she hissed, her voice low and venomous, "all you ever do is complain. We give you a home, we give you a family, and all you can do is throw our struggles in our face." She looked at Liam, then back at me, her lip curled. "You're just a burden. You always have been." Burden. The word didn't just hang in the air. It landed inside me. A dense, cold stone dropped into the hollow space I'd been carrying for years. It wasn't the anger that struck me. It was the honesty. It was the truth of how they saw me, finally spoken aloud. I looked at Liam, expecting, hoping for some defense. A "Mum, that's not fair." A shake of the head. Anything. Instead, he laughed. A short, sharp, cruel bark. "She's right, you know," he said, swirling the wine in his glass. He looked at Tinsley as if letting her in on a private joke. "Elara's always been the family charity case. We've been carrying her for years." And in that moment, something broke. Or maybe something finally set. The years of quiet resentment, of feeling overlooked and undervalued, didn't explode. They crystallized. It was a moment of shocking, terrifying, silent clarity. The sounds of the room faded away. The clinking of Tinsley's bracelet, my father's uncomfortable cough, my mother's ragged breathing, it all receded into a distant hum. The perfectly cooked food on my plate suddenly looked like ash. The fork in my hand felt impossibly heavy. I looked at their faces. My mother, righteous and angry. My father, cowardly and silent. My brother, smug and dismissive. They weren't my family. They were my clients. And their account was horrifically past due. I carefully, deliberately, placed my knife and fork together on the plate. I folded my linen napkin and set it beside them. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping softly on the hardwood floor. I stood up. I didn't say a word. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. The greatest statements, I realized, are made in silence. I walked out of the dining room, down the hall, took my coat from the closet, and let myself out the front door, closing it gently behind me. I got in my car and drove away, the glow of the house shrinking in my rearview mirror until it was just another anonymous light in the suburban dark. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had left. For good, back in my small, quiet apartment. The silence was different. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the presence of peace. The word echoed in that peace. Burden. It wasn't an insult. I finally understood that. It was a job description. For years, I hadn't been a daughter. I had been a maintenance plan, a living, breathing insurance policy against life's difficulties. I wasn't a person to them. I was a utility. A line item in their budget, as essential and as unloved as the water heater in the basement, and a burden can be set down. I sat at my laptop, the screen illuminating my face in the dark room, with a strange sense of calm, of surgical precision. I logged into my online banking. There it was. Automatic payment to First National Bank. Amount, $950. Monthly, I clicked on it. A new screen appeared. Edit or cancel payment. My hand trembled, just for a second. 34 years of conditioning, of being the good daughter, the responsible one, fought against this single, revolutionary act. Then I thought of my mother's sneer, of Liam's mocking laugh. I clicked cancel payment. A confirmation box popped up. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I clicked yes. One by one, I snipped the threads, the electric bill, the gas bill, the water bill, the cable and internet package. Click yes, click yes. Each one was a small, quiet act of emancipation. I wasn't burning a bridge. I was decommissioning it. It had served its purpose, and its purpose was to be used. I was done being used. When I was finished, I closed the laptop. I sat in the dark and I breathed. The air in my lungs felt different. It felt like my own. For 3 days, there was nothing. A beautiful, glorious silence. I slept better than I had in years. I went for a long run. I bought myself flowers. I was rediscovering the geography of my own life. A landscape I had ignored while I was busy maintaining someone else's. Then, on the 4th day, the storm broke. My phone, which had been peacefully silent, began to vibrate on the kitchen counter. A text from my mother, Alara, mortgage payment failed. Fix it. No hello. No are you okay? Just a command. I watched the message bubble, then set the phone down. A few minutes later, it rang. My father, I let it go to voicemail. The message he left was steeped in panicked confusion. Alara, it's Dad. Your mother says the mortgage. It didn't go through. Is something wrong with your account? Call us back. We need to get this sorted. We need to get this sorted. Then came the barrage. Calls and texts from both of them, escalating. From confusion to annoyance to righteous indignation. This is highly irresponsible, Alara. What are we supposed to do? Are you punishing us? After all we've done for you. Liam is worried sick. I snorted at that one. Liam was worried about the stability of his freeloading crash pad. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about the disruption to their service. The foundation had crumbled, and they were furious about the inconvenience. I read every message, listened to every voicemail, and with each one, the last vestiges of guilt inside me withered and died. They weren't just confirming my decision. They were validating it. This wasn't a family dispute. It was a cancellation of services. And their panicked, entitled messages were the final receipt. I picked up my phone, blocked their numbers, and went back to watering my new flowers. The boundary was holding. Weeks turned into a month. The silence from my end was absolute. I was building a new life out of the rubble of my old one. Then, one evening, a call came from a number I did recognize. My cousin, Chloe. She was my mother's sister's daughter. A kind soul who had always existed on the periphery of the family drama, an innocent bystander. "Alara, are you okay?" she asked, her voice full of genuine concern. "Aunt Carol is losing her mind." "I'm fine, Chloe. Better than fine, actually." "Well, things are not fine over there," she said, hesitating. "Listen, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but Liam lost his job." I felt a cold stillness when, a couple of weeks ago, right after Thanksgiving, his company had a huge round of layoffs. He didn't tell anyone, just moved back in with him. All his stuff is in the garage. He and Uncle Mark are at each other's throats. So, the golden child had fallen. The sun had burned out. It all clicked into place. Their desperation wasn't just about my half of the mortgage. It was about losing their primary source of status, and now being saddled with their unemployed 30-6-year-old son. The financial crisis was total, and just as Chloe predicted, their strategy changed. The demanding texts, sent from unblocked numbers of friends or neighbors, stopped. They were replaced by a new campaign, an offensive of fake sweetness and manufactured remorse. Voicemails from my mother, her voice thick with crocodile tears. "Ilara, honey, I miss you. I don't know what I said, but I'm so sorry. Please, just call me." A text from my father. "Your mother isn't eating. We're all just so worried. We love you." It was so transparent, it was almost insulting. They didn't want me. They wanted my wallet. They were trying to lure the maintenance plan back online. The final audacious move came from Liam himself. He called me from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but a morbid curiosity got the better of me. "Ilara, hey, it's me." He sounded different, not apologetic, but slick. A salesman's pitch was coming. "Listen, I know things have been weird. Mom and Dad are a mess. But look, I've got an amazing opportunity. I'm starting my own consulting firm, disrupting the industry. I've already got a few potential clients lined up. I just need some seed capital to get it off the ground. I was thinking, since you're so good with money, you could be an early investor. A ground floor opportunity." I was speechless. The sheer, unmitigated gall. He had contributed to blowing up my life, showed zero remorse, and was now hitting me up for a loan. "Liam, I," said my voice dangerously calm. "Are you out of your mind?" No, hear me out. This is a sure thing. I'll pay you back, double, triple. It's for the family, really, to get us all back on our feet." "My answer is no," I said. "Do not ever contact me again." I hung up the phone, my hand shaking with a rage so pure it was almost exhilarating. I thought that was the end of it. The desperate, pathetic, last gasp of a drowning family. I was wrong. It wasn't the end. It was the prelude to the ultimate betrayal. A week later, I was at work when I got a call from an unknown number with a strange area code. I usually ignore them, but something made me answer. "Hello, am I speaking with Alara Vance?" A professional female voice asked. "This is she. Ms. Vance, my name is Sharon Miller, and I'm a loan processor with Crestview Mortgage. I'm just calling to verify a few final details on your refinancing application for the property at 452 Oak Street." My blood went cold. 452 Oak Street. My parents' address. I'm sorry, I stammered, my mind racing. "I think you have the wrong number. I haven't applied for any loan." There was a pause on the other end. "Oh, that's odd. We have the application right here. It's a cash-out refinance. The primary applicant is Liam Vance, with you listed as co-signer and co-owner of the property." My breath hitched. I felt the floor drop out from under me. "Co-signer? Yes, ma'am. We have your signature here on the application, along with your social security number and financial details." We just needed to verbally confirm your employment before we moved to final underwriting. The purpose of the cash out is listed as business startup capital. Business startup capital. Liam's words echoed in my ears. The world went silent. The background noise of my office disappeared. I could feel the blood draining from my face. He hadn't just asked me for money. He had been rejected, and then he had decided to take it. He had taken my identity, my name, my financial history, and he had forged my signature on a federal document to steal the equity in their home. Equity I had helped build to fund his delusional startup. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. This wasn't about hurt feelings or insults over a turkey dinner. This was a crime, a felony, and the burden I thought I had set down had just tried to crawl back onto my shoulders, heavier and more venomous than ever. But this time I wasn't just going to set it down. I was going to destroy it. The shock lasted for exactly 1 hour. It was a cold, paralyzing dread. Then it receded, and what was left was a diamond-hard clarity. The kind of clarity that forges steel. I was no longer a victim in this story. I was the protagonist, and it was time for the plot to turn. My first call wasn't to the police. It was to the smartest, most ruthless person I knew from my non-profit work, a woman who had done pro bono consulting for us. Her name was Evelyn Reed, a corporate lawyer who moved through the world like a scalpel in a silk blouse. I laid out the entire story, from Thanksgiving to the call from Crestview Mortgage. She listened without interruption, a long silence on the other end of the line. When I finished, Lara, she finally said, her voice devoid of pity but full of focused energy. They have committed multiple felonies. Identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy. This is not a family matter. This is a legal fire, and our job is to contain it, and then use the ashes to our advantage. Here is what you will do now. Her instructions were a battle plan. First, I called all 3 credit bureaus and placed an immediate freeze on my credit. I explained the situation. They were efficient, professional. The first wall of defense was up. Second, with a deep, steadying breath, I walked into my local police precinct and filed a report. I sat with a detective, a tired-looking man named Miller, and I told him everything. I gave him the name of the mortgage company, the loan processor, my brother's name. As I spoke the words identity theft and forgery, it felt like I was describing a stranger's life. But the name on the report was mine. When I walked out with a copy of that police report, I felt a strange new power. It was the power of documented truth. Third, Evelyn drafted a cease and desist letter that was a masterpiece of legal threat. It was addressed to Liam, my mother, and my father. It detailed the fraudulent loan application, cited the specific federal and state statutes they had violated, and informed them that any and all future contact with me, direct or indirect, would be considered harassment and subject to further legal action. She sent it via certified mail to 452 Oak Street. The pawn had become a queen. 2 days later, my phone rang. A blocked number. I knew who it was. I answered, putting the phone on speaker. Evelyn had told me to record it if he called. "What the hell did you do?" Liam's voice was a frantic, furious screech. "I believe the question, Liam, is what did you do?" I said, my voice as cold and calm as a frozen lake. "You filed a police report. Are you insane? You're going to send your own brother to jail over a misunderstanding." Forging my signature on a 6-figure loan application isn't a misunderstanding, Liam. It's a felony. I was doing it for the family, he shrieked. The classic narcissist's defense. To save the house. You left us with nothing. You forced my hand. You owe us. After everything we did for you, raising you, feeding you, you owe us this. The entitlement was so pure, so profound, it was almost breathtaking. He truly believed it. He believed he was entitled to my life, my credit, my future, as compensation for the basic act of parenting. He saw me as their property, and my refusal to be used was, in his mind, the ultimate betrayal. "I don't owe you anything, Liam," I said softly, the finality of it settling into my bones. "I paid my dues for 34 years. My account is closed. The police have the file. The bank has been notified of the fraud. My lawyer has a copy of everything. You did this. You and Mum and Dad. You are on your own. Goodbye." I hung up. Before he could respond, I blocked the number. That night, I went to a stationery store. I bought a simple, black document folder. On the crisp white label, I wrote one word: burden. Inside, I began to place the evidence of my old life. I printed out years of bank statements, highlighting the automatic payments to their mortgage, their utilities, every receipt for groceries I'd bought them, for a new water heater, for my father's dental work. Every transfer, every sacrifice. I was compiling a record, not for them, for me. It was the accounting of what I had given. It was the proof that I was not the burden. I was the one who had been carrying it, and now I was free. The legal storm raged, but at a distance. Evelyn handled everything. The fraudulent loan application was killed. The bank launched an internal investigation. The local police detective called once or twice, but I had firewalled my life from them. The cease and desist was a shield of silence, and in that silence I began to build. I had been saving for years, a quiet little nest egg I'd always imagined, using for a down payment on a small house of my own someday. But the idea of putting down roots in Ohio felt wrong now. The soil was poisoned, so I looked at a map, and my eyes fell on Boulder, Colorado, the mountains, the clear blue sky. It felt like the opposite of the flat, humid landscape of my childhood. It felt like a deep breath. Within 2 months, I had quit my job, packed my life into a small, moving truck, and driven west. The first time I saw the Flatterens rising up against the sky, I cried. Not from sadness, but from a sense of profound, startling freedom. I found a small apartment, a new job at an environmental nonprofit, and I began to hike. I hiked until my legs ached and my lungs burned, and with every step, I felt like I was leaving the ghost of my former self further and further behind. I was no longer the foundation. I was just ELARA. A year passed. A year of peace, of new friendships, of discovering who I was when I wasn't defined by someone else's needs. The folder labeled burden sat in my closet, untouched. I didn't need to look at it anymore. Then, one afternoon, I received a certified letter. It was from First National Bank, the bank that held the mortgage on 452 Oak Street. My name was still, technically, on some of the old paperwork from years ago. A relic of a time I had co-signed a small home equity loan for a new roof for them. Legally, they had to notify me. The house was in pre-foreclosure after my payments stopped, and with Liam unemployed, they had defaulted. They had missed payment after payment. The bank was preparing to seize the property and sell it at auction. I read the letter, and I felt nothing. No sadness, no satisfaction. Just a quiet, clinical observation. The end of an era. But then an idea began to form. A wild, audacious, terrifying idea. It was a final move on the chessboard. Not a move of anger or revenge. A move of reclamation. I called Evelyn Reed. "The house is going to auction," I said. "I want to buy it." There was a long pause. "Alara, are you sure? Why would you want that monument to your pain?" "Because it's not finished," I said. The idea now fully formed a brilliant, shining thing in my mind. "I need to write the last chapter. Evelyn, ever the strategist, understood. She set up a blind trust, a limited liability company. With a sterile, anonymous name, she engaged a local real estate agent in Ohio to act as our proxy. My name would be nowhere near it. I would be a ghost at the auction. The day of the foreclosure auction, I was a nervous wreck. I sat in my Boulder apartment, looking at the mountains, while my agent texted me updates from a county courthouse 1,000 miles away. The bidding started low. A few investors made offers. My agent armed with the maximum price I was willing to pay, a price I knew was fair, but not extravagant, made his bids. My heart pounded. This was insane. It was a terrible, beautiful, crazy idea. Then the text came through. We got it. The property is yours. I sank into my chair, the breath leaving my body in a long, shuddering sigh. I had just bought my childhood home, the place where I was born, and the place where I had been broken. The legal process was swift and impersonal. An LLC now owned the house. The previous owners were now tenants in default. My lawyer sent a formal, legally airtight eviction notice, giving them 30 days to vacate the premises. I flew back to Ohio for the final day, the day the sheriff was scheduled to perform the lockout. I didn't go to the house. I parked my rental car down the street, hidden by the shade of a large oak tree. I saw them, my mother, her face grey and pinched, my father, looking stooped and 100 years old, and Liam, his face a mask of impotent fury, hauling boxes to a beat-up U-Haul trailer attached to his car. They looked smaller. The righteous anger was gone, replaced by the grim, exhausted reality of consequence. As they moved the last box, my mother looked up and down the street, her eyes scanning, searching, and her gaze met mine. Across the distance, through the windshield of my car, she saw me. There was a flicker of confusion in her eyes, then dawning, horrified recognition. Her mouth fell open. She grabbed my father's arm, pointing. He and Liam turned. They all stared at me, frozen on the sidewalk amidst their scattered, pathetic belongings. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just looked at them, my expression calm, neutral. I gave a single, slow, deliberate nod, a simple acknowledgement. Yes, it was me then. I put the car in drive and pulled away, not looking in the rearview mirror. This time, there was nothing left to see. You might think I moved back in, that I slept in my old room, exorcising the ghosts, reclaiming the space as a trophy of my victory. But that was never the plan. A trophy is something you polish and put on a shelf. I wanted to build something that lived and breathed. The house sat empty for 2 months while my plan took shape. I partnered with a local non-profit, One-Eyed, admired for years, an organization that helped young women who were aging out of the foster care system. Girls who, like me, knew what it was like to be a burden on a system, to be defined by their needs instead of their potential. Using the money I had saved, the money that would have been my own down payment, the money that hadn't been siphoned away for years, I funded a complete renovation of the house at 452 Oak Street. We tore out the dark carpets. We painted over the dreary beige walls with bright, warm colors. We put in a big, modern kitchen with a huge island where people could gather. We turned the bedrooms into safe, beautiful sanctuaries. The house, once a place of silent, suffocating obligation, was filled with the sounds of construction, of creation. It was being reborn. Today, I'm back in Boulder. But I flew in this morning to visit. I'm standing on the sidewalk, looking at the house. My house. No, that's not right. It was never truly mine. Now, it belongs to them. The front door opens, and 2 young women come out, laughing, books tucked under their arms, on their way to class at the local community college. Another is tending to the new flower beds we planted in the front yard, where my mother's sad, manicured rose bushes used to be. The lights are on, there's life inside. There's hope. I'm not the owner, I'm just the founder, the benefactor. A name on a small, discreet plaque inside the front door. They called me a burden. A word meant to weigh me down, to keep me in my place. But a burden, once you find the strength to lift it, makes you stronger. And once you set it down, you have the freedom to build something new in its place. I didn't just escape my past. I transformed it. I took a legacy of pain and forged it into a foundation of hope for others. And standing here, listening to the laughter coming from the windows of my old house, I am finally, completely at peace. I am no one's foundation. My life is my own, and it is a beautiful thing to build.